You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Johannes Ekström of Avatar. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hello, hello, hello. We're back with another episode for your ears, but before we get too far into it, I need to tell you about the Florida Panhandle Giving Cable by Sinusoid. They are making a special white Van Dam cable, and all the proceeds from the sale of this cable will be going to help people displaced by Hurricane Michael in the Florida Panhandle. It was a really awful event. It devastated a lot of people's lives, and they're doing what they can to help those people out. So if you go to sinusoid.com, the correct link will be in the show notes. You will see the Florida Panhandle Giving Cable. It's only available for one more day. So I talked about it last week. I'm talking about it again this week. November 6th, as this podcast is dropping on November 5th, November 6th is the last day that you will be able to purchase that. So make sure and hit that link, check it out, get yourself an awesome cable, and help support some people who need it. Of course, we are also brought to you by Gun Street Wiring Shop. Gun Street Wiring Shop out of Bend, Oregon. I know, I love Oregon. I'm a big fan. I know I live here, and I'm a little bit biased, but I love Bend. And I love Gun Street Wiring Shop. Sean is an excellent guy, making excellent products. I mean, just go check out their Instagram. You'll see the attention to detail is insane. Got great step-by-step instructions and great customer support should you run into any trouble when you're trying to upgrade your guitar's wiring harness. And if you don't see what you need on the site, contact them. Sean can make the harness of your dreams come true, and it will be awesome, and your guitar will be sounding and functioning better than ever. So make sure to go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out today. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the ToneMob.com podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Joe Balaguer of Balaguer Guitars. How's it going?
Doing well, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. I've been scoping your stuff out for a while, and when we ran into each other at Fear the Riff, it was like, yeah, we got to make this happen. It just makes sense.
Yeah, man. No, I'm glad to be on, and it was great meeting you at the show, and yeah, I'm stoked to get into it.
For sure. Well, we can jump right in. I know you've got a longer backstory and than what maybe a lot of people realize. So I think that would be a good place to start. We'll just start like, what's your musical backstory? You know, what did you start listening to? How did that translate into where you are today?
Sure. Well, I started playing guitar about 16 years ago at this point. I'm 32 now, so I was in high school. Started just learning Metallica songs and Megadeth and all the old school thrash metal, essentially out of tab books. And that is what really fueled my passion for playing the guitar. So I probably spent a good 3 or 4 years just woodshedding, learning, every single song from Injustice for All and Ride the Lightning and Rust in Peace and all of those great, classic metal albums. And then, I got into heavier music like hardcore and doom metal. And, I've kind of always been focused on heavier styles of music. It wasn't until, my early 20s did I start getting into jazz fusion, and other, genres besides metal. So that's kind of where it started. I just am self-taught, and just the fact that I was always a broke, musician or a broke college student, depending on my time of life. I would just work on my own guitars, uh, and that's kind of what led me into lutherie, and then eventually going to lutherie school. But yeah, my general music history is just you know, growing up listening to classic rock and then metal, and picking up the guitar in high school just because of other, people playing, and uh, a buddy letting me borrow his guitar, and it just, going from there.
Nice. So what Luthery school did you go to? I hear that referenced a lot, and then I usually fail to ask that question because I don't know any of the Luthery schools.
Sure, yeah. There's like a handful of them in the United States, but the one that I went to, it's called the Guitar Craft Academy. It's part of the Musicians Institute, which is a college in California. And the Luthery part of the school is actually separate from the main campus. Um, it's not too far away. I think it's probably like 7 miles away from the main campus. But yeah, I went there. It was a 6 month program, 6 days a week. The sixth day is optional, but I went to every Saturday. They had the workshop open, and the classes were around 5.5 to 6 hours a day. So I graduated that school in 2009. So I'm coming up on almost 10 years of working on guitars at this point. But yeah, it was a great experience. And, you know, being a Pennsylvania native, it was definitely a culture shock for me to live in Los Angeles for a handful of years.
I'm sure it was. It's a culture shock for me, and I live on the West Coast, so
Oh,
it's
for
a
sure.
it's like its own entity. I think LA is
Right. Because you're in Oregon, right?
correct. Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, I would love to go to Portland sometime. I've never been, but I could only imagine Los Angeles is its own, I feel like its own thing. You either love it or you hate it.
I think so. I don't. It's not. It's a hard city to be lukewarm on.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. There's no middle ground. You either like it or you don't, I feel.
yeah, well, if you ever do make it to Portland, look me up. I can show you where to eat. It's
Definitely,
my
man.
specialty.
Well, I'm definitely down for that for sure.
So, did you start you didn't start just building your own guitars right away, I'm assuming. You probably did some sort of you probably worked for somebody else for a while, or how did that work out when you got out of the program?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I graduated at the height of the recession in 2009. So the only job opportunities that were open to me at the time were um, working for larger manufacturers in the general Los Angeles County area, making $10 an hour, setting up 50 guitars a day. And I had some interviews at said companies. I'm not going to name who they were, but it just seemed like a very backwards thing to do because at that point I felt like I was very proficient at setups, and I wanted to kind of hone my craft and push myself further. And I felt like setting up that many guitars a day wasn't really where I wanted to go with it. I wanted to actually, get my feet wet with building more guitars than I did in the program, and just learning as I go. So I actually didn't uh, get a job right out of school. I ended up moving back to Pennsylvania for a year or two before I moved back out to California for another like 4 or 5 years. And during that time, I just did a lot of repair work, uh, just through word of mouth, whether it was a friend or a friend of a friend. Um, and I did that for quite some time. Even when I moved back out to California, that was mainly what I did was repair and restoration work on vintage guitars, and just newer guitars too, like pickup swaps, fretwork, what have you. But when I actually moved back out to California, I was kind of juggling doing that stuff part time, but also playing music and doing session work because I was still very passionate about playing music and being like a career guitar player. Um, so I was endorsed by a few other companies before I started my own company, and I was doing session work in LA and product demos for guitar and amp companies. Um, and you probably still find some online, but yeah, so that's kind of what I did for, I would say, 2.5, 3 years until I finally, had the spark of doing something further, in the Lutherie world instead of just doing repair work. Um, so it's kind of a unorthodox, unique path that I've taken, but it was it wasn't until like 2014 ish, um, to where I really started like delving into, you know, putting a couple designs together and building a few guitars for people that that I really kind of jumped headfirst into it.
Did you know, like, was there a defining moment where you were like, I think this is the way forward, or did it just kind of naturally happen?
Well, when I went to Lutheran school, that whole path for me was a very natural, organic thing. Like I wasn't, um, it wasn't like I was sick of a job like that I was doing out of college or high school or something, and it was like a switch was flipped. Like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go to school to build guitars. It was kind of just, I was working on my guitars for so long that I just had a natural passion for it. So I ended up researching Lutheran schools over the few years that I was saving up money. And outside of Lutheran school, after I graduated, uh, I still had that passion, but I was still kind of like, not to sound cliche, but trying to like find my way because I was still, 23, like in my early 20s. So I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And it wasn't until I randomly met Bo Burchell from the band Seosin, uh, through a very random Craigslist ad where I think I was trading a guitar or trading an amp, and he was trading a guitar or amp or something like that, where we emailed each other, and then I saw his name in the email, and I tried not to be a fanboy, but I kind of let some of that out, and I was like, dude, what? Yeah, I recognize your name, like, you know, do you play in Seosin? If so, I've been listening to your band for X amount of years. Um, I'm a luthier. I'm just building a few guitars here and there for people that I know. It would be awesome if I could build a guitar for you, like, pro bono, like, just something I'd want to do for him as someone I look up to as a musician. And he was nice enough to entertain that, and I ended up building him what I call the Thicket BB, which is now his signature model. But it was like a Tele style guitar with an Evertune bridge, bare knuckle pickups, really standard, ash body, maple neck, maple fingerboard. Um, and he ended up really digging the guitar. And I went over to his studio. He was showing me all of his vintage guitars, and we just became friends. And it was kind of an organic relationship after that. And I think that's what really gave me the validation and kind of like lit a fire under my butt per se, um, and was kind of like, here is the opportunity. You should really take it and run with it. And that's kind of what I did.
That's fantastic. That's really really cool.
Thanks, man.
And I'm a fan of that band as well, and so I can imagine the fanboyism is real.
Oh,
It can
for
be a
sure.
difficult thing to contain sometimes.
Yeah. And just like after building the guitar for him, seeing that they started playing like like a couple handful of shows, um, when Anthony Green rejoined the band for the newest album that they released a year or two ago. Um, Seeing them play in Los Angeles, and like my my wife, my fiance at the time, like going out to that show and seeing him play the guitar on the stage. And at that point, like I only had a few guitars under my belt that I built, and he was playing one of them on stage, and it was just kind of like bizarre. Like it was such a humbling experience, but it was also terrifying because I was just like, holy crap, this is like, I just could never believe that would have happened, like meeting someone like that. And some people may not even know like who Seosin is, or like, but in my little part of the world, like growing up listening to that band, it was just a really cool moment.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate. I've had sort of similar moments, although not as cool as like having somebody actually play an instrument that you made with your hands, but getting to meet some people here and there through doing this, it's like, whoa, like you said, I've been listening to you for 10 years. Like your songs have got me through some stuff, man. Like things
Exactly.
like that.
Yeah, man.
Um, and what I've found is like, and I've only had this happen a couple times, but generally those guys they're used to hearing that, and they almost like just being treated as the dude that they are. You know what I
Totally.
mean? It's
Totally.
like because they are, we put them on these pedestals, but they really are they're just like you and me. They just are.
I
It's
can,
they're
yeah, I completely agree. Bo was the same way. Like, you know, my wife and I went to meet him and to hand off the guitar to him, and he was just like such a down to earth dude because he is. But like, like you said, you build it up in your head of this crazy musician. He's on this pedestal, and yeah, I mean, now he's like one of my good friends, and it's just weird. It's you don't expect to have that happen, and when you do, I guess your expectations are set a certain way, and then you realize, oh, this dude's just a dude like me, just playing
yeah,
guitar.
exactly.
So
Yep. And then I mean, it was like I told this same story before, but I've been a big Gaslight Anthem fan for a long time, and recently I've got to hang out with Brian a couple times after we did the podcast in Boston, and you know, my wife's like, she she's standing there with she's a big fan too, and she comes away and she's like, he's they're just like you're just nerding out about stupid guitar things,
yeah, yeah, that's so
like
awesome.
what color is the and I'm like, yeah, it's almost like we're all musicians and kind of have a similar mindset.
Yeah,
And she's like, I can't believe it. I'm like, there are thousands of us, honey. There are thousands of us.
it's really cool though,
um
man. Yeah, it's awesome.
um Speaking of musical heroes and just you know heroes in general, you've got a signature guitar with Andy Williams from Every Time I Die, who I'm also a huge fan of.
Awesome.
Can
Yeah,
we talk
yeah,
about that a little bit?
sure. Yeah, so I guess to start from the beginning, we endorsed this band, The Word Alive. Tony Pizzuti and Telly Smith play our guitars, and I think I think it was Warped Tour. It must have been a festival, something like that, where Every Time I Die was playing with The Word Alive, and Tony and Andy are friends. So Tony let Andy play his growler, which is like my J style model. Um, and Andy really dug it. So he started following us on Instagram, and one thing led to another. We ended up DMing each other and talking back and forth about a model that I had released a few years ago that I discontinued, but it's my take on like a Guild S300. The body shape's slightly different, and I do a German carve around the shape itself. But I discontinued it because it's a very odd shape, and it didn't really catch on as best as I thought it would. Um, but I guess he like dug through, the Instagram posts from years ago, and he saw that, and he just asked, "Would you ever do that model again?" I was like, "Oh yeah, definitely, man." And we just talked back and forth about it for a few months and kind of nailed down his specs. Um, and I was like, "Well, since we're going to be like custom voicing pickups for you, why don't you just let me send you a guitar that I have here, which is like it was one of the old stock Enigmas, I think." And I sent that over to him, and at the time he was endorsed by Fishman Pickups, and I sent him a humbucker that we did. It was like one of our newer, like higher output humbuckers called the Trainio Bucker, and he fell in love with it, and he dropped his Fishman deal, and he's like, "Dude, let's do a signature guitar together, and we can do, my own pickups voiced after this pickup, but slightly different." And one thing led to a next, and then I also designed a lipstick single coil neck pickup for him as well. and then it was like an organic thing. Like same thing with Fluff and same thing with Bo, like our other artists. Whenever a signature model happens, it's always like an organic thing. It's never forced. It's just kind of like, well, you're already getting the specs you want. If you think people will dig this, and most of the time I do think people dig what those guys spec out, because they have great taste, which is awesome. Let's just make it something specific to you. So that's how it happened. It was just an Instagram message essentially, and he's been like such a sweetheart to work with. You look at him and you think he's this huge bear of a human, but he's so nice and he's such a good dude. Um, and yeah, I guess the version 2, like 2.0, if you want to call it, of his Enigma, is going to be coming out this fall, within the next month or so. Because the first iteration was just one humbucker, and the seafoam green with a brown tort pickguard, roasted maple neck, roasted maple fingerboard, black block inlays. Um, and the newest one is actually like a peach pink color with a white pickguard. His new humbucker in the bridge that we call the Gorilla Bucker, and the new lipstick single coil in the neck that we call the Thunder Lips.
Thunder Lips,
Yeah,
nice.
and yeah, and then it's got an ebony fingerboard, mother of pearl block inlays, and just a few different appointments. But essentially, we wanted to put the new signature pickups in there and put a blade switch in instead of a toggle, and one volume, no tone. So it's kind of exactly what he wanted in a touring guitar. So yeah, I'm super stoked on that. He's one of the best dudes to know. He's a really good dude, and he's a gearhead. So he'll text me about an amp that he just got, or what I think about a certain Mesa amp, because we both are Mesa Boogie heads. I have a couple Mesas, and he has like a crap ton of amps. So it's just we always get into these discussions about amps. So it's been cool, man. He's a really good dude.
That's fantastic. I think yeah, they're one of my favorite bands from that genre. Well, just in general, I've liked that band for a really long time,
We got to get
and
him on this podcast.
I would love to talk to Andy. Would love to. They've wrote one of my favorite riffs ever. It's at the end of their song El Dorado.
Okay.
And I could just jam that. It plays for a really long time at like the end of the song,
Yep,
and
I
I
know
could just
exactly
jam
which
that
riff you're talking
on
about.
repeat.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so good.
It
It's
is.
such a catchy, awesome. Oh man, it's such a good riff. I mean, even people who don't really like that style of music, I'm like, no, 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 just check this riff out, and they're
Yeah,
like,
it's a riff
okay,
anyone
I
can
get it.
appreciate, I feel, if they're a guitar player.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I wonder if Andy wrote that. That could be.
I don't know. That's a good question. I could ask.
But yeah, I would love to have him on. Gutter Phenomenon is like one of my like growing up defining albums.
Oh,
I
same here,
jam
man.
that on repeat, man.
Yep.
So good. Let's see. So you just mentioned you were a Mesa Boogie nerd. Can we
Indeed.
expound on that a little bit?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, don't even open that box with me, because I'll talk hours and hours about amps. But yeah, no, I that was actually one of the companies that I did some product demos for before I started my company, my guitar company. Um, so when I was living out in LA, they flew me up to Petaluma, and I did some videos on their pedals, and did some amp videos too, which they're on their Mesa Boogie YouTube channel from like I think a few years ago. My head's not in it; they chopped off my head, but my playing is in it. But yeah, so I feel like I've owned Mesas forever. I'm trying to think of like the first year I got a Mesa, and I honestly can't remember. It's been that long, but I ended up meeting Tim, who's the artist relations rep from Mesa, at the NAM show. This was, oh man, let me think about this. 2012, 2013, something like that. Maybe a little later. I don't know. It's all fuzzy in my head now, but um, and we ended up hitting it off and kept in touch after the product demos, even when I moved back to Pennsylvania. Um, and yeah, we have a bunch of Mesa gear in our showroom at our shop. We have a JP2C head. We have a Triple Crown head. We have some Mesa cabs. We have a Mesa bass rig there. Um, and almost every year that we're at NAM, we always have Mesas in our booth. Just they're just a great company, man. If you ever get a chance, since you are on the West Coast, to tour their Petaluma factory, you definitely should. Um, because they're just all great people there. And it's still a really small company, even though you think Mesa, you think, oh, they're one of the biggest amp companies in the world, which they are. Uh, but the actual production facility and the amount of people that work there, it's still a rather small uh, factory. Um, so it's just cool to experience like a company like that that's still thriving and still doing really cool stuff. Um, and meeting people there that have been there for 15, 20 years who love what they're doing. I just think that really shows like how well the VPs and the higher ups and like Randy, the owner, like how they treat their employees. It's just a really cool thing. So that kind of trickles over to my love for the amps even more. Um, and I love other amps too, like Bad Cat and Orange and stuff, but Mesa kind of has like a sweet spot for me.
That's interesting. I kind of find that almost across the board. It doesn't seem to matter which company we're talking about in this industry. Like when you actually get to most facilities, it's like this is not as big as I thought it would be. you know,
Yeah, I
it's
guess
always a little
unless you're
smaller.
talking about Fender or some of the really huge corporation style companies. Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen too many amp facilities, so maybe that's just my naivety, but um, yeah, just the Mesa, place in general. It's just if you can ever get a chance to go over there, it's worth it for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would really like to check it out. I've never been, but it would be fun for sure.
Yeah,
Do
and
you have
they're
a oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and obviously their amps sound really good in my opinion. So everything they've released, I've dug. I don't think there's ever been an amp that I'm kind of like, eh. They always seem to kind of do something really cool, whether it's like just a variation of another amp, whether it's the Mark III, Mark IV, Mark V, whatever, the JP2C. Um, I always find something that I really dig about their amps. Because some amp companies rather, they may be really good at like making a high gain amp, but then the clean channel suffers because of the preamp stages and stuff. Um, or like there's a really great amp company that does really great, you know, clean circuits, but if you need a high gain tone, you're going to have to use, a modeler into it or, a distortion pedal or overdrive pedal or something. I just think they're one of those companies that really do both well. So not to hype their amps too much, but I just really dig them. So I think that's one thing that always brings me back to them is you can kind of get any tone you want out of them.
What is your favorite Mesa model?
I would probably say the JP2C. I am a John Petrucci fan, a Dream Theater fan, but I'm not like, oh, I own every album, I know every song by them. Like I appreciate them, and I know a few songs by them, and I don't own the amp because of John Petrucci, but I own it because it just has so much on tap. Um, I think if the one thing that I would change is I would almost simplify it just because the circuit just sounds so good. Um, there's like a few switches that I leave on and a few things that I leave where it's at. And if I could just have that as like a single channel amp with like a dedicated clean channel, then that would be like the best amp in my opinion. But I just think that's one of their most versatile amps. So whether you play praise and worship or indie or rock or metal or death metal, like it doesn't matter. That amp's going to be able to deliver whatever tone you want out of it. So I think that's quite rare in the tube amp world, without delving
Very cool.
into a Helix or, some other kind of modeling thing to, further extend the tones of your amp.
Helix, ew, gross. Oh. No, I always like pretend on the internet that I don't like the Helix, but it's actually pretty cool. I'm gonna be honest. But
Yeah, man, I think it's cool.
it's
I
it's
have a
good.
Helix. Yeah, I just think it's not for everyone, but I feel like everyone could find something they like about it just because I feel like that is the processor that Line 6 really stepped their game up on. Like, and you can tell just not only from the UI standpoint, but just the overall tonality and features of it. It's a big
Yeah,
boy
I
modeler for sure.
it is. It's definitely intense. I I've said before, like if I was like doing like if I was an actual musician and I was like doing flight eights or something, I would probably have one. But since I'm a nerd in my nerd cave, I don't really have any use for it. It's just like, no, I want all the pedals,
Yeah, for
all of
sure.
the pedals.
Yeah, I love pedals too, man. I think it's just one of those things that, I've seen a lot of guys that they may love pedals, but they're sick of having a cable die on them or sick of having, you know, to swap stuff out or what have you. And they sell everything and get a Helix and they never look back. But then there's some guys that they try the Helix and it's just not the same for them. So they sell it and they go back to pedals. It's like a vicious cycle I see online. But um, yeah, I mean, it's really cool because they have a Helix Native too, which is just their software version. So even if you don't want to get rid of your pedals, you can just pop it into your DAW and just use it like that, and it's literally the same thing, just minus
Yeah,
the processing power or whatever.
yeah, that is pretty cool. I tend to see the same cycle that you're talking about with Helix. Like some guys get it and they love it, but I've seen a couple guys who were really big Helix proponents. I'm looking at you, Jamie Davis. I know you're listening to this right now. He's a member of the community. He's pretty active and a very vocal Helix proponent. And he has
Nice,
this really epic uh, regular board that he's built alongside of it. So
nice.
that's where I was going. There seems to be people who like to play in both waters. It seems pretty common.
Yeah, no, I think so too, and I think another thing that I kind of go back with the Mesa Boogie thing is the community and like the way that they treat their customers is just really cool. Like I always see the Line 6 groups on Facebook and everyone being super helpful and not saying that you don't see that with other companies or you don't see that with other social media groups for specific gear, but it just seems like it's a very unique community, which is cool. Um, because, like I said, I do have a Helix in our showroom, and even though I don't use it as like my personal rig, like I had some questions on it, and I just popped my head into that group and found the answer in like 10, 15 seconds or something. Um,
Right.
so that's been cool too, and just the fact that um, the support is great because sometimes with modelers or uh, even companies in general, like they might not have the best customer support. I think that's like paramount if you're you know offering a product or even a service. You want to make sure that your customer experience is good. So they got that going for them.
Yeah, that's always a good thing, and I think that's what really separates companies in general is their customer support has to be there. And I know like from talking to different companies that like sometimes it's people don't understand how difficult some customers can be. It's like it's like I've seen some ridiculous things like ridiculous emails that some guys have forwarded me. I'm like, what is this guy even talking about and how can you fix it? Like,
Yeah,
but it's what separates you know the good companies from the bad companies, I suppose, in
sure.
my
Yeah,
opinion.
it's all reactionary. It's all how you deal with that said customer who may be having a bad day or just had a bad experience or may just be entitled. You never know what the issue is, but it's how you control the situation. I feel like is this a big thing for a public facing company. Um,
For sure.
plus, I mean, there's tons of bands that I love, like Thrice, that use Helix, and those dudes. combine pedals, like you said, with their digital rigs, and they still use Morgan, combos and high quality boutique tube combos as their main rig. They just push the helix through it. So I think it has its place in multifaceted, gear chains. I just think they're definitely on the forefront as far as having a really cool interface with like the colored screen and everything. So, gotta give it a chance, man.
Mm, nah,
Nah.
nah. No, I've played one. I've played with that, and I've played the Head Rush a little bit, and I liked it. It was really good. It just doesn't because I'm not like going anywhere. It doesn't really fill any gaps for me, if that
Yep.
makes any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't
Like,
satisfy a need.
yeah, but I'm not the normal customer though. I'm not the normal customer for any company. I'm just a obsessed gear hoarder. So it's like it's not. I can't use my think so's as a baseline oftentimes because it's
It makes
I'm a little
sense.
bit weird.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So let's talk about your guitars a little bit. I hope I could talk. Let's talk about your guitars a little bit more.
Sure.
You take a little bit of a different approach to your lineup than a lot of, quote unquote, boutique companies. You want to kind of explain your different ranges and, what that means and what goes into each of them.
Sure. Um, so I don't even know if I would call our guitars boutique. I feel like boutique is a weird term anymore, and I think most of the time it's used incorrectly. Not saying you're using it incorrectly, but just in the industry in general. Um, and I just think,
Yeah, that's why I threw the quotes in there because
yeah,
it's hard to define what that means
exactly.
and how to label things. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I mean, we're definitely a small business like that. If that is a facet of the boutique definition, then I guess we do fit that. But um, yeah, so our business model is a little unique, I suppose, because we obviously offer our Heritage Series guitars, which are guitars that I build myself here in the United States and sell when I finish the builds. They're not customer commissioned or anything like that. It's more of a creative outlet for me. I build them when I can and I sell them when they're finished, essentially. Um, and then the other two lines that we have uh, are built in South Korea. So I design all the guitars. They're still the same designs that I use to build in the United States, but they're built in South Korea by a team of guys who've been building guitars for 15, 20 years at this point. Um, and those are offered at a lower price point because of labor and the ability to, you know, just offer the guitars at a lower price point because we buy the wood in bulk and a bunch of different variables. And that is our production series and our semi-custom series. Um, the semi-custom, I think, is the most unique out of everything that we offer because they are semi-custom guitars. You can go on our website and right at the homepage, you can click, guitar base, and it'll take you to an online interactive guitar configurator where you select, the body wood, neck wood, fingerboard wood, finish color, scale length, fret count, really anything you could think of down to even LED inlays like multi-scale fan fret. Like we do a bunch of,
Oh wow.
yeah, we
Wow.
do a bunch of different stuff, man, and a lot of stuff that people don't even ask for. We just do it because we can. Um, within taste. Like obviously, we don't do stuff just because we can and it looks ugly as sin. But there are certain things that we offer that I feel like is just unique to our little niche part of the market. Uh, so anyway, you design those guitars on our website, and that is the guitar, in a graphical representation. You get a picture of it in front of you on the computer screen or your phone screen, and you place your order. Our build times right now are 4 to 6 months, but we're trying to get that back down to 3 to 4. And we build that in South Korea, and then those guitars are then shipped to our headquarters here in Pennsylvania. And then we go through a 32 point, quality control checklist. Every guitar gets passed over my bench before it gets shipped out to you, the customer. And, we can do any final changes at that point, such as like, you know, tuning, string gauge swap. Like if someone at last minute wants a different tuning, different strings. Um, and just we go over everything. We level the frets if there's any high frets. Make sure the nut height and the nut slots are where it needs to be. Go through intonation, the full setup, and so yeah, it's a really unique thing I feel because I don't think anyone in the industry is really doing essentially custom guitars built overseas at a lower price point. And um, our production guitars are something that's great for us too, but they're I guess secondary right now until NAMM coming up in January 2019. We're going to be releasing something new surrounding that. I can't talk too much about it right now,
Oh man.
premature, but yeah, it's definitely something that I think is going to hit a different part of the market that I think people are going to be excited about. But we'll see. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the gist of what we do. And kind of the whole idea behind it is, in my opinion, country of manufacturer isn't as relevant as it was 10, 15 years ago, as long as you partner yourself with a shop that shares your same quality standards, your same, labor standards. So making sure there's fair labor, making sure the quality is what it should be and that it's consistent. Um, so yeah, as long as those 2 points are met and you guys are on the same page and you care about the end product, then I think it's a good thing. So whether the guitar is built in Korea, China, Japan, Indonesia, America, Canada, like I don't think it really matters. I just think it's you know the quality standards and the labor practices and kind of the whole point of doing it is just to get the guitars in people's hands. So um, if I can do that and offer a customizable option for people, like I just feel like that's a cool thing.
It is a very cool thing. And I agree with you. I don't think that it matters so much anymore. I think it maybe used to at one point, but I mean, the iPhone's been around for a while and mine gets abused on the daily and it holds up pretty good. Made in China, you know. There's a lot of examples you can point to that show that country manufacturer doesn't necessarily mean much anymore. It's just, is it a quality product or not?
Yeah, and I think also the argument that people make is, well, you're not supporting American labor. Well, it's like, well, I'm an American company. I have an American family. I have American employees. So it's one of those things that I just think if my guys in Korea are getting paid what they should be getting paid and they're not working 70, 80 hours a week, they're working a normal work week and all of that is a standard practice for us and as long as we stick to that, like I just feel like there's nothing wrong with it. And yeah, I think there is a mental shift nowadays that people don't care as much, but there's still that, narrow-mindedness where people say, "Oh, I'm only going to buy USA or I'm only going to buy, from this country or what have you." And that's fine. I mean, we still do our heritage guitars that I build, so if they want to hold out for a guitar that costs more than $2,000, that's fine with me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a different thing. But yeah, man, I think it's unique to us and um even we just have people that just hop on the website just to build mock-ups and build their own guitars that they can't afford right now, but eventually they'll save up and we'll get emails from people that are stoked that they can order a $1,300 custom guitar for themselves and it's the quality level that they're expecting and most of the time we try to exceed those expectations and it's been great.
I mean, yeah, why wouldn't you be excited about that? That's a pretty cool thing. I know that like I mean, I've had a couple of guitars built. And as a teenager that would have been completely impossible for me to do. But like something like what you are doing would have been something that I could have saved my pennies for and reasonably obtained in a relatively short amount of time. And to have all those options available to more people is, I think, really, really, really cool. So
Thanks, man.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate
Um,
it.
one question is like, how difficult was it to find somebody that you liked working with overseas? Was it a fairly straightforward process, or did you have to do some digging, or how did that go?
Yeah, it was actually a pretty long process. Because when I originally started my company, I didn't have that in mind. I was just like I told you before, when I first, completed that guitar for Bo from Seosin, that was when I was living in California and I didn't have any of my production stuff set up overseas. It was just me. Um, and that's just kind of what I was doing part time. So it didn't actually start happening until I went to the NAM show and I ended up meeting uh, this one of the first factories I worked with, which I'm no longer working with. But I ended up meeting them at NAM at a hardware booth that builds, Tone Pros and Godo and a few other aftermarket tuners and bridges and stuff. I ended up meeting
Gotcha.
one of the factory owners there who was at the booth, not working the booth, but at the booth talking to the guy. So we just ended up talking. And that was a company that builds like Reverend guitars and a few other guitars in Korea. And I ended up using them for a little bit. The quality was okay, but it was just not where I wanted to be. I wanted the quality to be a little higher, um, just based on the amount of guitars that they required, for a minimum order and kind of the scalability of where I was at as a company. It was just me, so I wasn't really set up to be setting, X amount of guitars up while trying to maintain another job. Um, so I ended up moving to another shop, which is actually where I'm at now, in South Korea, that is a shop, not a factory. So it's actually under 8 people. Um, and three of those
Oh,
people,
wow.
yeah, so three of those people are Andy, John, and Chris, and they work on all of the semi customs. Um, so it's really only 3 people working on those guitars, and that's kind of why they take, 4 to 6 months, 3 to 4 months, depending on the time of year. Um, and then the rest of the guys will work on the production stuff. So it's a shop atmosphere. It's not like a huge assembly line or a huge, carousel of guitars floating in the air, waiting to be dried till they can ship out in hundreds per day, like that. It's not that atmosphere. Um, and I think that has kind of worked in our favor over the last year or two because we can control the quality better. And we have the ability to kind of push the envelope as to what we can offer because I'm able to drop ship my own wood. I'm able to kind of facilitate, the type of hardware we use, the pickups. Like we use all of our own pickups if we're not using like Fishman or EMG or some other aftermarket company. Um, we're able to source our own fret wire, stainless steel. So there's a lot of like stuff that I feel like people don't think about when they're working with an overseas factory or shop. Some of them won't allow you to source your own wood or won't allow you to source different components or parts. You kind of just have to use what they have on hand just because of costs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's kind of where we lucked out with partnering with the shop is they're just on the same page as us and they get what we're trying to do, like our business plan, and they agree with it, they like it, and they want to kind of help us grow. So it's been a really cool thing. I feel very lucky to work with them.
That's really, really cool. That I think you're in a very unique position. I don't want to say you're the only one doing it because I don't know, but you're the only one that I know of that is doing it that way and working with a shop like that. That's pretty that's pretty interesting. I like it. And I can attest to the guitars I played at Fear the Riff were fantastic.
Thanks, man.
So they were as good as anything else that was at that show, honestly,
I
and
appreciate that.
better in a lot of cases, if I'm being honest.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
But they were
those
they
guys are
were really
great.
nice.
Those guys are great over there. And I mean, anyone can go to our website right now and go to the About section and scroll down to our team area, and they'll see not just, our USA employees, but they'll see, my three main guys in Korea are right there on the website. So they're part of the team just as much as my guys are in Pennsylvania. We try to be as, transparent as possible about where our guitars are built. It's right on our website. We're not trying to, you know, pass them off as anything they're not. Um, and I just feel like they do such a good job, and they're such a huge part of the business that, you know, it's just been a really cool and unique relationship. And yeah, like I said, I feel lucky to have partnered with them because I feel like it is a unique thing. Because when you think of, a guitar built in Korea or elsewhere, you'll think, okay, it's a big factory, it's a mass-produced guitar, etc. But it's really not the case for us.
It's very cool. It's
Thanks,
very
man.
cool. So yeah, I guess going way back in the conversation, that was another. You mentioned another one of your artists that I kind of wanted to bring up, and that was Fluff.
Yeah,
That's kind of a different. We've talked about it before. I do a podcast with Brian Wampler, the Chasing Tone podcast, and we've talked about it a lot on there. Whereas like some of these YouTube guys, and him being one of them, they're like almost like the new rock stars. They're like the sort of,
I can see that. Yeah, I
they
can see
kind
that.
of are.
Yeah,
It's it's weird to say, but like that's what, especially like guys younger than us, or people younger than us, are watching like YouTube like relentlessly. Brian's got teenagers, and he's always talking about they're all watching YouTube all the time, and they're YouTubers. They watch they're like legitimately famous people to them, even though the YouTubers probably don't necessarily feel that way.
I agree
With
wholeheartedly, man. Anytime I'm walking with Fluff at NAM, whether we're like going to get something to eat or he's coming back to our booth for a playthrough or something, he gets stopped like 12 times by people, and more so than not, like you said, it's like preteen or like teenager guys that are just like,
mm-hmm.
Fluff, can I get a picture with you? Your beard's awesome. Like, and they're fanboying out, and it's so cool because Fluff is like, if you've ever met him, he's just so down to earth and cool. And he's just like, oh, sure, man. And I'm like, dude, I'll just meet you at the booth. It's just like, gets stopped so much because he's such a recognizable guy. And yeah, no, I completely agree, man. And I think it's really cool because, some of these guys have over 100, 200,000 subscribers. And when they post a video, all of those people are notified. And it's just like, you know, yeah, you can play shows, you can tour all over the world, but you really have the ability to have like, even if 10% of his 200,000 subscribers watch that video when it's posted, like that's 20,000 people watching, your video just because they subscribe to your channel. Like that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, it's the way the internet has sort of leveled the playing field in that way is really weird. Like, this is a very small podcast, right? But in comparison to, Joe Rogan or something like that, it's a drop in the bucket. But at the same time, if everyone who listened to this podcast was standing in a club, and I like had to go up there and talk, I'd be like, this is awkward.
Right.
Like it would be it would be weird to be trying to talk to like 4,000 people. It's it's weird to think about that's what's actually happening, but that's what is happening.
Yep.
So
It's cool, man.
hi everybody. Joe and I are talking to you right now.
Yeah. No, I agree. It has leveled the playing field, I feel, especially from an exposure standpoint and getting your name out there. I'm always seeing like new YouTubers pop up, like gear demos and what have you, and it's really cool. I feel like some people just make a living just doing that, and that's pretty cool.
It is. It's a lot of work though. Like some people don't understand how A, difficult it is to cut through like all the noise, and then B, like how much work it is to produce YouTube videos that are good and fun to watch and informative or whatever, just videos that drag people in.
Oh,
It's
I'm
so much
sure.
work.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I talked to Andy from Reverb about it a bit, and it's just like, man, like, I mean, he's gotten good at it now because he's done it so long, but it takes a bit of time to be able to produce all that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like that's a craft in itself. Like having the videography skills and the creative flow of like, okay, I did that video X amount of weeks ago. I can't, I got to come up with a new idea or what have you. That's just, yeah, I feel like you kind of need to, you know, you kind of need to have some experience in, creative thinking and videography to even be, long term successful in something like that.
Totally, totally. Well, we are getting down to kind of the last bit, and I haven't asked like the really important question, the heavy hitting question.
Okay.
And so I this one's kind of intense, and a lot of people don't know how to answer it, but it's probably the most crucial thing.
Okay.
So, what kind of pizza do you like?
Oh man. Is there a wrong answer to that? I feel like it's probably Hawaiian for most people, but um, man, that is a really hard hitting question for me since I live on the East Coast, and I
Exactly.
feel like I should say like New York style thin crust pizza, but I am a sucker for stuffed crust like pepperoni pizza. Um, I don't know why that is, but yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
You gonna go with the stuffed crust?
I'm gonna go with the stuffed crust. But I do dig like a classic, like Italian pizzeria, just plain cheese style pizza. Neapolitan's
Mm-hmm.
good too, I guess, but yeah, I think it's a tie between those two. What's your favorite pizza?
My favorite pizza, it's bounced around a little bit. I used to be like a very hardcore like Italian style like wood fired pizza lover, which I still do
Yeah,
love. Don't get me wrong.
same.
Um, but and I've said this on the podcast before, so sorry for the repetition, everybody. But I went to New York a couple times in these last few years, and the first time I went to New York, I was very skeptical. I was like, I'd heard it from reliable sources that it was really good, and I'd heard, all this stuff about New York pizza. I was like, I was looking at a lot of it and go, yeah, that looks good, but it looks like pizza. Like
Mm,
I didn't get it. And we went to a few of the top recommended places while we were there, and now I get it. Like, I I understand. um,
well,
probably one of my
I've been
oh,
told that New Haven, Connecticut has really good pizza, but I've yet to I've yet to go there.
I'm with you there. It
Yeah,
looks good.
it
It
does.
looks really good. Um, but yeah, my current favorite pizzas are probably yeah. There's some spots in New York. I really liked Grimaldi's in Brooklyn. That was probably the best pizza I've ever ate.
Nice.
Really liked Grimaldi's. But here locally, I just found one that scratches my New York itch, which is nice. Which is Scotty's Pizza Parlor here in Portland.
Oh,
If you're in
nice.
Portland and you're looking for a slice like that, that is the spot to go. It is good.
That's so weird. We have a Scotty's Pizza right near us in Pennsylvania. It's totally different than probably what you guys have, but
Probably
interesting.
so.
Yeah.
Do you have a local pizzeria that you'd like to shout out right now?
Yeah, why not? I would say Menino's in Pottstown, Pennsylvania is probably the best local, like Italian style pizza, whether it's Neapolitan or just regular brick oven style. So yeah, Menino's, I think it's Mannino.
Menino's Pizza.
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah.
I feel like there's, people want to get on their soapbox about regions and pizzas. You know what I mean? Like, this is the best area for pizza. New York's the best. No,
Yeah.
Chicago's the best. Blah, 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 blah. But really, at the end of the day, I've never been to a place in the country, like in a major, at least in the big city in that state is, that doesn't have at least one good pizza place.
Yeah, I feel like that's the case. And I also feel if you're talking about like Chicago deep dish, to me that isn't what I think of when I think of pizza. I don't know if you've ever had like Lou Malnati's in Chicago or anything, but that's like straight up pie with with a ton of sauce on it. Like that doesn't taste like pizza to me. It's good for what it is, but when I think of pizza, I think of kind of what I feel like you think of is that like, brick oven or wood fired, thin style, New York pizza. But
Yeah. Yeah, I have had Chicago style pizza here. There's a food truck that actually does some pretty good ones, but
nice.
agreed. If I'm craving that, I'm not really craving pizza. I'm craving a pizza like dish.
Right?
To me. It's good. It's not what I think of when
Yeah,
I
it's
think of
just like
pizza.
thick dough with sauce on it essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, we're just about at that hour mark. Thank you so much for coming on the show and taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It was great talking to you.
Totally. Where can people find you on the internet? Where do you want them to go? What do you want them to do?
Well, they can find us on our website at www.balaguerguitars.com. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, it's just Balaguer Guitars. And that's about it. And they can come to
I
our
just realized I kind of pronounced that wrong in the beginning.
oh, it's fine, man. Everyone does. I don't expect you to get it right the first time.
Usually I ask, but I really thought
Yeah.
I had it this time. Blast.
We're also going to be at the Winter NAMM show in Hall D, booth 3446, right next to Walrus Audio. So if you're going to be at the show, stop by, say hi.
All right. I'll see you there.
Yeah, man. See you there.
It'll be good times.
Yeah,
Hopefully
man.
we'll see all of you there, listener people.
Yeah, we can all get pizza.
All of you. Come on down. We do usually do, the last couple of years we've had a Tone Mob pizza party. I felt really bad about it last time because the restaurant we went to the first time, I called and I was like, yeah, we're gonna have probably like 20 or 30 people again, and they're like, that's fine. And I bet you we had the second year we probably had 50 people show up.
Oh man.
And so we like completely took over the whole place, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Like, you poor wait staff. Like, this is not what I meant to happen. So this year, if I might try to do it a little differently if I can do it. I'll probably try to have some pizza delivered to the NAMM show.
Nice.
I don't know. I'm not sure how that works. I need to like figure it out. Yeah. Last year was just, I felt so bad for the restaurant. We just destroyed them. So I'm trying to figure it out this year.
Cool, man. Well, let me know.
All right, will do.
All right, Blake.
Everybody. For Joe. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I was just saying. All right,
Did you
Blake.
say something?
Thanks.
All right.
Sorry.
For Joe, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, that's the end of the episode, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in, as always, and make sure you go check out Joe's guitars. They're really, really cool. I think you guys will like them. The shapes and the build quality is definitely there. I think you should give them a whirl. Just some final house cleaning things. The Adventure Audio Demogorgon pre-order is currently live and rocking and rolling, but it is over on Friday. So we've only got a few more days to get that if you are interested. Shoot me a message or just go right over to tonemob.com/store and you can see where to buy that. And we are not going to be making these anymore. This is kind of the last hurrah. We didn't intend to make any more in the first place, but we got so much feedback off of the original V2 that we had to do a V3. and it's better than ever. You can check out, we got 3 different demos over there, including one by yours truly. I actually did a real legit demo, which some of you have already seen, but if you haven't, it's over there in the store embedded on I can't talk. It's like I do this for a living. I can't talk all of a sudden. It's over embedded in YouTube on the store. So just slide over there and you can check out all 3 demos, all 3 completely different approaches to the same pedal. And I think you'll see there's a wide variety of range in there. So yeah, other than that, if you have any comments or questions, shoot them over to info@tonemob.com, or you know where to find me on the interwebs. Check out @theToneMob on Twitter, Instagram especially, because, I mean, who doesn't love Instagram? And make sure and check out the Facebook group if you haven't had time. Let's see, there's more, there has to be. Oh yes, there's a couple things. First of all, if you need more of this conversation, it's available on Patreon. Joe and I sat around and talked for a little while longer, and you can get the extended portion of the interview over at patreon.com/tonemob. So if you go there, you'll see a couple different levels, and the $5 level is where you start getting extra Tone Mob content every week, delivered right to your ears, or possibly eyes in the future. We'll see how it works out, but that's where you go, patreon.com/tonemob, and it's just $5 a month, and you get extra weekly episodes at the minimum. There could be even more. Who knows? The patrons do. That's who knows. So that's where you get more of that. Furthermore, yes, officially have booked NAMM, Winter NAMM 2019. I hope I see some of you guys there. This is promising to be a very big NAMM for me. They got lots of things cooking, and hopefully they can all click into place to where this NAMM should be very different than previous NAMMs. Let me just put it that way. And as soon as I know more, I will tell you guys. But right now, just hopefully I'll see you there. And if not, I hope you're there in spirit. So until next time, which will be next week, I hope you all have a good one and take care of each other. One last thing before we totally sign off here, I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.